What's going on, guys? We are back in the Jurassic Lab again here with a brand new hybrid custom video. Now this is one that I have covered before on the channel twice already. That is the Ultimasaurus, one of my favorite hybrids. Love that guy. And the Scopios Rex here is going to make a great candidate for the Ultimasaurus hybrid since he has some of the features already on his body. The only thing he is going to need is the Triceratops frill and horns. So I've got this trusty old Mattel Triceratops set of horns and frill here that I've cut to fit on top of his head. My main goal was to keep the sort of modifications down to a minimum. This is going to be sort of a hybrid between the Ultimasaurus and the Scopios Rex, so not necessarily just a full-on Ultimasaurus, sort of a mix between the two. So I wanted to keep things relatively simple in this one and just sort of have some fun with it. So before I get into this repaint, I'm going to need to attach the frill and horns to the top of his head. So I'm just going to grab some hot glue here and pour it into the top part of the Triceratops frill area. And then I'm going to take it and just set it on top of the Scopios Rex head. That way it can harden and just sort of sit on there while I sculpt over it with the epoxy putty. This is the only modification I'm going to do to this guy. I want, like I said, keeping it really simple today. Nothing fancy. Just want to give the appearance of sort of a hybrid between the two dinos. So I'm going to be using Abe's epoxy sculpt to sculpt all of the details and fill in the gaps between the Scopios head and the Triceratops head. This is a two-part epoxy putty. You just mix it together until it's all one solid color. But you can use Milliput or epoxy sculpt, whatever kind of epoxy putty you have available to you will work. So I'm just going to start by filling in the gaps in between his head. I wanted to try to keep the gaps as small as I possibly could to cut down on as much sculpting and blending that I had to do, because I want to try to keep a nice smooth transition between the two parts since they're very different in sculpt and texture. So I'm going to try and match it up as best as I can. Just sort of playing off the factory sculpt of the Scopios Rex and sort of blending it up into the trike frill kind of thing. This is a fairly straightforward process, really just filling in the gaps, trying to get everything neat looking, and then I'll go back in and start sculpting all of the details and stuff like that. So I saved the front horn from the Mattel Triceratops and I just kind of cut it down and pushed it into the clay on the top of the face right here. And now I'm adding a little line of epoxy sculpt around it just to bulk it out. That way it's got some material around it for me to sculpt some details on, and it will also help hold that horn in place. And now I'm going to take my sculpting tool here and just go around the face and add some lines and textures and little details and stuff just to try and make everything blend together and make it look seamless. And once I'm happy with the way everything looks, I'm going to go ahead and let the epoxy sculpt cure overnight. That will be nice and rock solid tomorrow for when we're going to start painting it. And fortunately, thanks to the magic of TV and video editing, you don't have to wait that long. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to today. This guy here is ready to rock and roll, and he's ready for some paint. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that now. So I'm going to take it real simple with the paint here. We're actually going to do a full-on dry brush body first, and I've got 3 different grays to choose from. I've got a dark gray, a medium gray, and a light gray for those final highlights. And because he's got a bunch of articulation spots, I'm not going to worry about getting the airbrush out and trying to paint those real thin because it's just going to scrape off, and I don't feel like having to prep the joints. So dry brushing is going to be the best bet here to cut down on as much paint rub as possible. So I'm going to get a big fat dry brush, get some of that dark gray on there first, and fortunately, he's got a dark body, so all of the dark plastic underneath will sort of act like a shadow in a way. So it'll be really helpful with dry brushing the dark green, dark gray, medium color gray, and then light gray on top of it to hit all the accents. So the final highlight here, we'll just hit all the raised spots to make the sculpt pop, and then we can move on and start painting the red frill. So I've got some Citadel Scarlet Red on hand, and again, we're just going to be using the brush for this because it's a pretty straightforward, simple repaint. And I'm going to lay down a couple of thin coats of this red on the top part of his head. So I'm trying to be extra careful around his teeth because I don't want to have to paint the teeth if I don't absolutely have to, at least the top teeth, because when his mouth closes, sometimes the plastic looks like it kind of rubs together, and I wanted to cut down on as much paint scraping as possible. So I'm going to jump over to my airbrush real quick because painting yellow is a pain by hand, and I want to get a nice yellow around that eye socket. So I've just got some Createx yellow in my airbrush. Going to build up that yellow around there, go back in with a fine tip brush and cut back in around the eye socket, cleaning up all of the overspray on this thing. And now we're going to grab a tiny little brush and some black paint, hold your breath, hit that little tiny beady eyeball he's got in there, and then we'll jump back over to the black, hit the horns, all the little black details on his face, and paint those with a matte black or satin black, whatever you have on hand. And then we'll start doing the stripes on his back, also going to be in black. Now, since this is a hybrid mix of the two, I did not put the Ankylosaurus plate on the back, or the Stegosaurus spikes, or whatever the original Ultimasaurus has. This is a mixture between the two, so I'm going to play off the sculpt on here since it looks really cool. He's got the ridges and he's got the quills on the back. I think it's a nice little representation of it, sort of paying homage to the Ultimasaurus. I'm going to finish off the legs, paint those red, the same color red I used on the head. I painted these last because I was holding him by his feet the whole time, and I didn't want to scrape any of the paint off while I was holding him before I had a chance to seal him. So we're going to throw down some red on there, nice solid line, and then we'll go back to the black paint and finish him off by painting his claws black. And this is just pretty straightforward right here, guys. If you've painted claws before, you can do these ones. He's got really cool looking raptor claws. I like the sculpt on this guy. And then we'll do the little back claws that he has on his little heel area. And then we'll finish things off with the black band that separates the gray and the red color on his legs. And I'm going to go ahead and give him a couple of coats of matte varnish, and this guy is done. So I appreciate you all sticking around and watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and you found the information provided useful, and it has helped inspire your next custom hybrid repaint that you do. If you decide to give this one a shot, tag me over on Instagram at the Jurassic Park Compound, because I always love to see what you guys can come up with. For more Jurassic related content, you know where to find me. Links will be in the description box below. You guys take care, and I'll see you around the compound.